the ministers who have just come on board. Well, we're joined now by Dr. Yunusa Tanko, who is the National Chairman of National Conscience Party. Thank you for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good morning, Nigerians.
Well, all expectations, all eyes had been on this matter. So eventually, we now have the ministers on board. And well, we've seen some changes there too. From 48, we've got 24. All of them have got portfolios. And all eyes are just wondering, okay, well, now that they're in place, what do you think?
Well, a lot on the plate of Mr. President. But first of all, I'd like to congratulate all the ministers. And then, quite honestly, a lot of people have speculated a lot of positions for different people.
Yeah.
And then the president, in his own wisdom, thought it different. I'm going to speak and share my thought on the expectation of the ministers based on three things: unity, equity, and justice. Now, we are coming from a country with a background of bad feelings about divisions, from one area accusation and thinking that people would do one thing or the other against one region. And so this should be the crux of how we're going to change the system, to have this belief that everything works together as one. And then we will change this particular belief from all of these former campaigns that we've always been doing. The campaigns has always been on housing, food, and all of those ones. Let us now upgrade the level of campaigns to something new, breaking new grounds. And so for me, the expectation is very, very high. And so even if we, as other political parties, give constructive criticisms, those criticisms should be seen as a way of challenging the status quo so that they can move forward. So that is the way I want to take up this particular discussion this morning.
So what would you like to see done differently, specifically?
Okay. Immediately, at the moment, the Niger Delta is a very much concern for me. Why? Because we have a one-legged economy. And so if you want to bring out the best in the individuals, let's look at their own homes. How are they? Up till now, people are still living on thatched roofs on top of water in the Niger Delta. And that is where the source of the economy is. So I will expect that probably the Niger Delta Ministry would take so much attention into the area of providing good homes. I'm happy that Mr. President has looked at the area of cleaning up the environment at his way so that people can now have a source of livelihood. You know, how would it be fair when you see a government house built with beautiful marbles and all of those ones, and you see the people living in abject poverty? But when you boost the morale of the people, they will also contribute and cooperate with the national level so that whatever is being tapped from their background is being used for the benefit of all. So that for me should be number one. And secondly, when you look at the issue of diversifying the economy into the area of agriculture, I'm glad that they found favor in the person of our senior colleagues out Ube, who have a lot of interest into agriculture. Now, this agriculture should be taken on headlong, providing jobs, because it will provide the opportunity. Nigerians don't really need handouts, as it were. Just provide all the enabling ground to them to work. And other ones that cannot be able to work and enjoy the 5,000 naira that they want to give them, because how much is 5,000 naira? How much? So, but people can work. A clear-cut example. In Kano, for example, when you drive along Kano area going into the town, you see an industry being provided for tomato products. These are young men and women working. They prefer to work and earn a living. In Kaduna, for example, there are textiles industries that have completely closed down. I know there are a lot of them in the southwest. I know a lot of them in the east too. And once the enabling ground is being provided in terms of power and other sector, it will work very fine. And people will be engaged. In terms of roads, I'm very, very much worried about the level of erosion that's happening in the southeast. You know, the roads are not good. You can't travel between Onitsha down to Enugu. You even forget that there's another lane on the other side that's been constructed. You forget completely, but it's there. And when you do all of this, you change you make the people believe that you are working assiduously for their own interest. It helps to cement and unite the country. In terms of justice, which of course, Malami, I know he has a lot of work to do. I would really suggest for a certain reform, which I've always been calling for reform, even in the political sector. In justice, there's a lot of issues. You see cases that are similar in nature. For example, like Benue State and Taraba State. They have almost similar cases in nature, but the justice will be provided, like in terms of Hassan and then Darazo Isiaku and Honorable Tazo and that of Autumn of the APC. Now, these are political parties engaged in battles, and then some of them are talking about primary election, which has to do with the Electoral Act, which we've been calling for. But now, justice is being given while we celebrate the woman coming in, but then in the case of Tazo, it's been denied. So these are areas, because when you give fairness and justice and equity to all concerned, it provides an enabling where everybody will now feel the sense of belonging, that things are working for the interest of all of us.
Do you think we should have, or they should have split the Ministry of Justice and Office of the Attorney General?
Well, it will give a room for them to actually perform effectively well. But the truth about it is that it's not about splitting. There's a time in which I held two positions. But how well did you perform on those positions? If you are being fair, it will make it easier, considering the fact that although they are saying that we don't have money, and I find it very, very, very interesting, because early this morning you are telling us about the TSD account when companies getting about 25 billion naira. So I wonder, if we don't have money, if they are collecting 25 billion naira, how much did they collect for the country? So that means there's a huge source of money, except they are not telling Mr. President the truth. So in that respect, we need to look at these issues as regard to performance of the individual, and then he's been dispassionate, not being carrying personal interest, a regional or tribe or religious sentiment into his own office.
Then the agriculture. I mean, the minister did say that, yes, we intend to continue the policy of the previous minister who was there,
yes,
and strengthen it rather than starting all over again. Is that a plus or minus?
Well, if he has been able to identify that the former minister had done very well, because he's been celebrated, so then they need to add to what he has done. But the truth about it is that, how well have you looked at the desertification in the north, in terms of land and all? How well have you looked at the area, like for example, Zamfara State is heavily in an agricultural state. How well have you looked at those particular people working? What kind of machines and all have we put in place? How well are the farmers being trained to use all of this? In Israel, for example, they say Israel doesn't have anything, it's only farming. So, but then how much land does Israel have compared to Nigeria? But we are not utilizing that. So I would rather suggest that there's a quick reform that needs to be done and assessing the situation in the agricultural sector in particular. Most of the areas that we know are producing certain things that we've been enjoying from, example, the cocoa, the rubbers, and all of those ones. And then before you go up to the north, you talk about the cottons and the groundnut and the rest of them. We need to assess, actually, are those farm plantations there? Can they really produce to that particular optimal level? How well are the farmers being taken care of? A lot of people wouldn't enjoy coming to stay in the city. I, for one, would love to stay in the hinterland where I can be comfortable, but of course, we expect to have satellite and all of those so I can enjoy the fruit of, network. So many people would prefer to stay back at home. Why you see the influence in most of the cities is that because most of the people in the states have been denied fundamental ways of survival. And that is where the issue of this fight of corruption comes into me. We need to assess exactly how are we going to take care. In a case, for example, do you know that the financial regulation of this country, financial regulation that the ministers will work on, have not been upgraded, have been worked on since? And yet the budget keep on increasing, and then you expect the minister to use the financial regulation of about 20 years or 10 years.